So I enjoy those types of things. My job never is. Question right there. Say it again. No, in fact, I am outside probably only about a third of my time is spent outside. I spend quite a bit of time in my office and in my building, but I also spend time out in the community too. That's a really good question. There are some people who at Botanic Garden work mostly outside, and there are some who don't work outside hardly ever. There's a few of our folks who work in the office who they don't know a lot about plants, they know a lot about keeping records and data entry and taking care of our folks. So very good question. Sorry. I travel probably out of the county maybe 10 to 15 times a year. And then within the county, quite a bit actually on a weekly basis doing what I do. Other question? That's actually a really good question. We do allow dogs if their owners are members and they have to have a membership. So we're not like a city park. And so we have a few different rules. And remember, our collection, if you think about the plants being in collection, we have to really take care of those, and we also want pets to be safe too. So we allow dogs, but under sort of limited conditions. What else?
The events that you had, are those posted on your website?
Yep.
Where can we find those other places?
Sure. Actually, a lot of places like Facebook, Instagram, we post events, Twitter. Where else do you guys find? Who in here has a phone? So, does anyone go online on your phone? Or so you can find a lot of stuff on there. And check out our website. You can look for events there. But check out other Botanic Gardens too. There's a lot of different programs. It's not just all about plants. We actually are having a holiday light display this year. And in December, we're going to have these beautiful areas in our garden that are going to be just packed with lights. And we'll have live music, and fire pits, and hot cocoa, and all that good stuff. So it'll be a lot of fun. So thank you for your attention, and I will. I'll be here.
Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, guys, this is the second half of our presentation, so stay safe, be respectful, pay attention.
Now there's going to be a slight delay because of the broadcast. All right, gentlemen, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's probably, hey, so we're going to have a slight delay because we did it over YouTube, so we apologize for that up front. But we can hear you great. Okay, so I probably just got to turn it down a little. So we're going to have a slight there. There we go.
Better?
I mean, I'll keep mine. So mine. Nope, we should be all right. Okay, how's the sound now? Better?
Yeah. Sounds good. Yep.
All right, there we go. We got it. Okay, so I'm gonna let Mr. Demeen, and I know the picture of us is kind of not the greatest. Now, wait a minute. We know Mr. Demeen looks good, and the people behind him, we don't know how well they look. But Mr. Demeen can kind of move it a little. He'll kind of act as our moderator in case, like you can't hear something from the students, and he'll kind of keep you track on time. Yeah. If you would, there'll be the passing period like we talked, but we're just going to keep right on recording. That way you don't have to mess with another link and all this other stuff. We'll tag you on YouTube, and the link, please feel free to share, and we're all set. But I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Demeen, and we're all set. And I can't thank you enough from my end. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm not going to say too much. I'm going to let you guys do most of the talking because they hear me all the time. But ladies and gentlemen, you know, we have an opportunity here the games and whatnot. Well, I'm probably selling them short. With computer design, they have designed a game that has been picked up by PS4. Am I correct? I think. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna let them introduce themselves because they have a Concord background. All right. So these are Concord folks talking to Concord folks. If you're into it, I'm gonna let them do it because I can't do justice to what they've got to say. It's yours.
All right. So we're just gonna go through a little presentation sort of here.
Oh, I'm here. I'm hiding in the back.
No, they're trying to screen share. That should be okay.
Be patient.
You guys see this?
Yeah,
Yep.
we see it. We're 5 games programming. Perfect. We see it.
All right. So yeah, we're 5 games. We develop video games, and personally, I do programming and design. And Brent over here, which you guys can't see us anymore, is doing art and animation. And so we just wanted to talk a little bit about a game that we just made that was released on Xbox, PlayStation 4, PC, and iOS. So we made the game called More Fight, and basically it's a randomly generated exploration type game. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about like, what does randomly generated mean? So what we did was we took a bunch of little pieces of terrain. Say this is like a little piece of like 3D terrain that you can walk around, but we're just looking at it from a like bird's eye view. So what we did was we took these little pieces of terrain and added nodes to them, and those nodes are to tell the system that we programmed to be like, hey, I can have another piece of terrain on top of me. So it would look something like this, where it would be like, okay, I'll try to find a piece of terrain that can go there. So then it found 3 different pieces of terrain, added it to those nodes and recentered it, repositioned it. And then it does it again, and it does it over and over and over. So it would end up looking something like this on a planet, which we kind of create as kind of like small curated levels. So if we then went down onto one of those pieces of terrain, we need more details, not just empty terrain, like maybe like some plants and animals. So say in a 2D view, we're on the terrain with some nodes on the surface, and we need things to spawn there like rocks or trees. So the node on the left here goes, oh, hey, I want to be a tree. So it spawns a tree right there. And then the next node is like, oh, I'm a tree as well. But then the tree is like, hey, I don't want to be a dead tree. I want to have some foliage. So it's like, okay, here you go. So now we have 2 trees, but they're slightly different. And then the next one's like, oh, I'm not any plants or anything like that. I'm just a rock. So, okay, now that's a rock. It's not any foliage. It's just a rock sitting there just for a look. And then the last one's like, I'm not any of those. I'm a creature. So this is just a little example. I know you guys probably can't see this, but this is kind of what it looks like when we code. This is the function that takes nodes, finds them, and says, hey, I want a piece of terrain to go here. I know it's confusing to me right now looking back at it, but I mean, that's just kind of what it looks like for my job, versus Brent's job is to make it look something like this.
Wow, they make it look like you guys.
So talking more about like how like important math and like art specifically are to our like workflow every day, it's just like super important to have that as like a base level kind of thing to go back to. If we had known how important it was to us like back when we were like in junior high or like even high school, we would probably be better off because we kind of came into things late. We learned a lot of things about game design and art later on. We didn't pursue it as a career initially. We went to school for, Kyle went for video production, and I went to school for graphic design, but we used the the math and the art kind of focuses we had to apply it to what we do now. So we're also self-employed. We don't work for a company, it's just us two. We contract with other people. With Morphight, we met somebody that published the game and oversees the project. So we work with people all around the world, each with a different task. If you did a salary job, for example, you'd be in a much more secure spot. So it's a little bit more risky being self-employed, but you have a lot more control over the projects you do. And it can be fulfilling to see a project all the way throughout it. Let's see what else.
Just as a reference, we're only 2 people in this studio, but we collaborate with a lot of others. There ended up being, I believe, 6 people working on the game for about 1.5 years. And then the publisher worked on it for about 4 months to help us port them to PlayStation and stuff. They helped us make the code work on those systems. So they worked on it for about 4 months with a team of 12. So even though we're small, we still collaborated with other people to get the game done, and it ended up being a pretty large team.
If you're interested in pursuing game design at all, so we're based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're not really connected with game development in Indiana, for example, but there are, I know colleges hold game design camps occasionally. So I know that the Indiana University has done this before. I'm not sure if they're doing it again, but if you're interested at all, you could do that. I think you learn how to either program or make art for video games, maybe even music. So there's a lot of different things you could pursue if you want to get involved in making video games.
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions?
Anyone got any questions? Yeah, up there. You're gonna have to be loud so I can hear you.
You guys go to college for this?
Did you hear her okay?
Did you go to college for this?
Yeah, so you guys went to college specifically for this?
Neither of us went to college specifically for this. Kyle learned how to program kind of on the side.
Yeah.
The thing you wanted to pursue. And I went to school at Bethel College. He went to Bethel University, which is up here. But I went to Bethel College in South Bend, and I did graphic design. So it's not completely related to what we're doing now, but there are kind of aspects of it that carried over.
Yeah, we would have to say that without going to college, we probably wouldn't be doing this right now, just because we learned a lot of experiences, a lot of ways to spend time on larger projects that we hadn't really done in high school before, that really prepared us to be able to try to start running a business right after college, which was, there was some really good times and some really bad times, and right now, hopefully we're okay.
Any other questions?
Sign it back there.
How long did it take?
What did you say?
How long did it take to make the whole game?
Morphight started in, I believe, February or so in 2016. So I'm not really counting months in my head right now. I just blanked out, but you know, almost.
It came out in September, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it just came out in September.
Over a year. And initially we were just going to do it for mobile only, like iOS, and decided to put it on consoles as well. So that made the development time about twice as long, because we had to keep that in mind, making them work on PlayStation and Xbox and computer. So.
And the scope of the game changed. We were planning on making a slightly smaller game, but as time went on, we were like, well, this is getting kind of big, so let's make it bigger and make it available on console.
Yeah, so it's important to have good time management skills and kind of a good work ethic to be able to handle that amount of workload, or else I don't know if you'd be able to release something that people would enjoy, or I don't know, would be fulfilling.
It's hard.
Yeah.
So there's a fair amount of deadlines involved.
Yes. I don't even know how to go through all of them, but basically the publisher would want us. to like have stuff done well before the actual release date because they have a lot of work to do as well. But we worked alongside them for a long time. So not only that, it's just trying to keep yourself as structured as possible while you're making, you know, thousands of different small features. It's like when we were working at the beginning, you know, you're trying to make the character, you know, like turn their head and stuff like that. Well, I had to do all the math to like turn the head, make sure that it looks right, you know, the movement makes sense. And then how does he walk forward? How does he fall? How do they walk down slopes? You know, stuff like that. It's just all the little things you have to pay attention to.
Okay. Yes.
What's your favorite part of your job?
Did you hear that? Okay. What's your favorite part of your job?
I like starting brand new games, and that's kind of a phase called prototyping. So you can kind of just make rough stuff really quickly. So you just kind of tinker. That's probably my favorite part, because once you actually start a game, the real work comes in, and then it just becomes a job. Doesn't matter that you're making video games. It's a long and taxing process. Playing games as research is fun too. I get a tax break on that.
Now, one more reason to do that. Yeah.
What would you tell us for advice if we wanted to pursue the job that you guys are doing now?
Can you repeat that?
Say that one more time.
What would you tell us for like advice if you wanted to pursue the job you're doing now?
Like
They're
advice?
asking, what kind of advice would you give them if they wanted to pursue the careers that you're in right now?
Well, depending on what you want to do, there's larger studios that have a lot more positions to fill. But if you're talking our case, art, if you like art is really important, or learning math and programming is really important. There are luckily a lot of opportunities emerging because of the internet and stuff like that, these coding camps that are kind of popping up all over the country that you can go to learn this stuff. And these tools don't necessarily have to end up just there to allow you to make a game. It could be anything. Applications that businesses need and stuff like that. There's endless possibilities and jobs by becoming a programmer or even an artist.
And we use the game engine called Unity. So Unity is a free program if you're using it for personal reasons or personal use. So that's a free resource that you can use, and there's websites that have a lot of tutorials and kind of teach you how. So there's a lot of, thanks to like the internet and kind of like game design being exposed like that, you can even start like now learning like basic code and like learning how to make art for games and stuff like that. So there's a lot of ways to pursue that.
Yeah. If you're interested in 3D modeling of any sort, just tinkering around, there's a free program called Blender, Blender. That's free to download and mess around with. And you can render images that look fairly realistic. So
Blender for 3D imaging. What was the other one you were talking about?
That's Unity, UNITY. That's the game engine.
I'm going to write these down.
Okay.
For playing purposes. Any other questions? Yeah, Dom.
Can you tell us more about the game?
Could you remember louder, Dom?
Can you tell us more about the game?
Sorry, we can't really hear.
Oh, Dom would like to know more about your game. Plug it. Go ahead.
We were gonna try to show some footage of it, but we did a test and it looked horrible because it was too laggy. But basically, the game is like you're in a first person, sort of like a first person shooter, which you do have weapons in this game, but it's not so. We didn't focus on violence or anything. We focused on exploration. So you can land on randomly generated planets and scan foliage, plants, and creatures to get information from them, and then you can use that to upgrade stuff later on. There's also a pretty large story that we added and created handcrafted levels that aren't randomly generated that bring you through a pretty long story as well. And so yeah, there's lots of stuff you can do. in the game. And something that I guess we don't really talk about enough is, alongside the story, we generated this galaxy system basically that has somewhere between 200 to 300 million planets, I think. So there's a lot to explore and find that we've never seen before because of the way we built it. We don't know exactly what things are going to look like.
Answer your question. Other questions, folks? We're all gonna sit around and be quiet.
What's the next project?
Oh, there you go. What's next for you guys? What's next? What's your next project?
We're prototyping now, trying to figure out a good idea to pursue, kind of thinking of multiple things. So we're talking it out. We're like using the whiteboard a lot to come up with ideas. We're like trying to make some art and some code to like make a new game. We also are trying to figure out if we want to pursue like a different project with other people. So we're basically deciding if we want to go off on our own now and make our own individual project, or sign on to a project with multiple people onto it. So that's the crossroads we're at right now.
Right. Because I'm just, my son is interested. He's a high school senior, and kind of going this route with computer science and kind of game design and things like that. And so, I mean, eventually, are you trying to grow yourself to where you're kind of the big dog on the project, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, if we find success in something that we make, there's a little bit of luck involved, but also really hard work. The work should pay off more than the luck, but sometimes you get lucky and you just somehow nail the right thing and are able to make a really successful game, which allows you to scale. But for now, we're just making sure that we can pay our own bills.
And we've been doing this for about 5 years, just us two. So, I mean, I feel like we're pretty successful in that way. So we're kind of taking it one step at a time when it comes to scaling up, mostly dependent on like the amount of money we get from sales from games. So.
Right. Well, I would ask you this, because as a working adult, are you happy doing what you're doing?
Yes.
Yeah, it's great.
There you go.
I think we both enjoy not like having a boss. Working for ourselves is pretty good, and we've known each other for a very long time. So having that relationship before the working relationship, I think, helped a lot. There's accountability and like trust in certain ways. So
Right, things that can get away in business sometimes.
I will say that in the end, it's still a job. It can be really hard. It won't feel fun at all. So, I mean, the products we make can be really fun. And when we make breakthroughs and new ideas, that's really fun and engaging. But at the end of the day, 95% of the work can be pretty boring. So
Notice he kept saying the word work.
yeah.
No, in live what we do, it's still work.
Oh yeah. We spend probably thousands of man hours. I don't know if that's a word or phrase.
I mean, yeah, you hear video games, and I mean, video games are great, but once you pursue that as a career, you kind of view them differently. I mean, we still play them for fun, but you kind of compartmentalize it in a different way. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't ask this question. I would ask, is that, now that you make them, how often do you find yourself playing games?
All the time.
It's not our own games so
Yeah.
much. If we're playing our own games, it's because we're testing to find bugs.
But yeah, we play games a lot for like fun, but we also play them and then come up with ideas either to like try to emulate what they've done, or we're learning like techniques and things. So it's kind of research in a way, but we also enjoy them. So yeah.
That's cool. I mean, I have to assume there's a fair amount of borrowing in the video game industry.
Borrowing?
This, like borrowing, I don't want to say intellectual ideas, but techniques and like.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there's resources where people will share like code, and somebody will be like, how do I like make something follow another thing, like for example, and then people will give examples of how they did it with their kind of code. So you can tap into those resources, or if people don't reveal it, people still try to like emulate what they've done with their game. So as long as you kind of make it your own, I think it's accepted. If you straight up copy it, then it's probably not a good idea. But it's good to kind of reference those things that you enjoy and learn from them.
In a lot of cases, those things become industry standards eventually when somebody does something right. Not so much stealing art or code, but
yeah,
certain things. Sure, that makes sense. I got another question from the group here. What's your favorite video game that you have played?
Ooh, okay.
You can go with more than one. We'll let you go with more than one.
Classic video game. One of my favorite video games is well, Mario Brothers 3, I'd say, is one of my favorite single-player games, but that's for the original Nintendo Entertainment System.
It predates all these games.
Ooh, what a...
That's all right.
I've been playing Rocket League lately.
Rocket League's great. Dr. Mario, that's another game I love. Old game, but it's great.
Classics are, though. That's why they stand up. Rocket League, any of you guys play Rocket League? All right. Now we'll see how far back you go. Dr. Mario, any of you guys? They're looking at me like I'm crazy when I ask them about that. Hey, folks. Keep it down a little bit. I know you're excited in this game.
When your game came out and how much is it?
The game came out September 19th, right? It's available on PC, on Steam, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, iOS, and it's coming out for Switch eventually.
Yeah.
And so it's $15 on everything but iOS.
iOS is $8.
Yeah.
Cool. So there you go. Yeah, Dom, what's up, buddy?
Do you think your game will be as popular as other titles that came out earlier this year?
Sorry, can you repeat that, please?
Say it again.
Do you think your game will be popular than other titles that came out earlier this year?
Will a game be more popular than if it came out
Or
earlier?
do you think it'll be as popular as some of the other games that have been released?
No. I mean, like it's definitely doing pretty well for our standards, but in terms of just the scale of our game versus other games that are made by teams of more than 50 people, we just can't really compete with that.
Right.
And the game has done well on iOS. Josh, who we work with, has a good relationship with the iOS App Store, so we had a feature in the App Store, and it performed pretty well on there. When it came to PC and console, it struggled because I think it's so oversaturated, and we don't really have like that relationship with them. So it kind of got buried under like the massive amounts of releases that come out every day for those things.
So we here at Concord are going to help you by starting this social media storm about this wonderful game, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
We'll do our best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Have you guys made a game for the original Xbox?
The question was, have you ever made a game for the original Xbox?
No, so we first started making games for iOS, and that was like during the 4S, right? iPhone 4.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing we started making games on, and yeah. So we've done games on iOS, PlayStation 4, Xbox One. Those are and PC as well.
Yeah.
We're not that old.
They're not that old. Yes, sir.
Have you played Titanfall 2?
Louder so they can hear you.
Have you played Titanfall 2?
I think the question is, have you played Techfall 2?
Titanfall 2?
Have you played Titanfall
No.
2?
It's cool though. A lot of great art. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you played any other games like any other games?
Oh, they're asking, what other games have you made?
We made a game called The Deer God. It was a free Xbox Gold Game of the Month in 2014.
Yeah, that
I
sounds
think.
right.
Yeah. And that was like a side scroller game where you played like a deer or a guy who like turns into a deer and you have to do these different quests and things. So we did that. We've also made some smaller iOS games that are more arcadey. We made a game called Hammer Bomb that's like basically Pac-Man, but if it was first-person perspective. So you're going through these mazes and dungeons and like getting power-ups and stuff. So
That game's free on both Android and iOS.
yep, that's called Hammer Bomb.
Hammer Bob or Hammer Bob? Bomb.
B-O-M-B.
Okay, Hammer Bomb. So you're first-person Pac-Man, free on Android or iOS?
It's on both.
Any other questions, folks? Yes. The question is, how old are you? It's personal.
I'm 28 years old.
I am also 28.
28. Make me feel even older if I'm sitting here. Any other questions, ladies and gents? Running out of things on the top of my mind. Yes. Can't hear. Yes, ma'am. I don't know if I can't hear you, so you might want to be a little louder.
She's wondering how far away, like internationally, have they worked with other people, like China or other people like that?
Artist for Morphight that did a lot of the art. For the 3D modeling, at least, Brent did a lot more of the UI.
No, we're good.
Yeah, you guys continue. I just got a 7th grade class I have to dismiss. They're not walking out on you. They just have to go.
So the farthest person away was he lived in Spain. And where else did he moved to? Belgium as well, I believe, during the process of making Morphight. So yeah, that's pretty much the other side of the world.
And also, the company we work with ported the game to PlayStation and Xbox across Australia. So it's Josh in New York, us in Minnesota, and then Daniel in Spain, and then studios in Australia. We're all over the place.
Yes, ma'am.
What's your favorite meme?
Oh my! Now we're. What did you hear him?
What's
What
your
is your favorite meme?
Your favorite? What?
They heard you. Easy. They wonder what your favorite meme is.
Our favorite meme.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought you said game again, and
I was like, I don't know.
I think Kyle's is Doge, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't keep up as well as you guys do with memes.
Yeah, we're old. We can't keep up with that stuff.
I remember I can have cheeseburger though, right?
We got one more question. Yes. She's wondering what your income, like, what's your income rate? How well you're getting paid at times?
fair to poor to well?
It varies a lot. Like if you're self-employed in any career, it's all dependent on the work you get and like the amount of work and the quality of work. So it's a risky thing to be self-employed. So it varies a lot. We're not like making a ton of money, obviously, or else we would have scaled up by now. But we're both able to live like decent lives, what we're making. So
I can say though that like industry standards, for example, say you're like a program lead on a project, you would probably be making somewhere around $100,000 if you're working for a large company. Artist, anywhere between 60 and 80, depending on your role. If you're a junior, less, but
yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, we only have a couple minutes left. Yeah, question? Go ahead. Did you hear her?
Nope.
Do you ever get sick of each other?
yes.
Yeah. It happens. It's just the two of us working together all the time, and we're like best friends, so we're always around each other.
So see, some things never change.
We work through it.
Right. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? This group's got about 3 minutes left. Then they're gonna switch. Oh yeah. What's up, kiddo? Like, go. You ever try to do each other's job, like switch roles?
Sort of. I mean, Kyle has taught me things to do in Unity. I can't program it all, but there are things I can like drag and drop and learn systems and things like that. So sometimes I will go in Unity and do things like that. And Kyle sometimes switches to making art. So in some ways we kind of go back and forth and can like kind of take over at some point, which is helpful.
Cool. When it comes to how much coding do you guys have to do versus what you have to, you know, like contract out?
Majority of the game, there's probably, I don't even know how many lines of code are in it, but I mean, tens of thousands of lines of code, probably at least 150 to 250,000 lines of code that run the game.
Recognize this person?
Hi, Brent.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Kyle.
Hey.
Instrumental in putting this all together. Pays to have connections. Oh, you got a big group over here.
Hi, Brent.
Hey, what's up? Good to see you.
Not too much. My favorite student ever.
You realize that had to happen.
I feel honored.
As we bring in my other class, and in a couple minutes, we're going to ship out the 8th graders and bring a new group in. Matt was saying if you want to mute your mic, you can. If you want to just listen to the chaos, feel free.
Okay.
Because you guys get to start the next one off. So.
Hey, Brent.
Yeah.
Shave that beard off.
Never.
Shave that beard off. It's not Minnesota winter yet.
Hey, wait, before you go, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Show your appreciation.
very much.
Hey, my class, listen and reduce the questions. If you have a question, you can. Oh, you have to. Everything's going perfect. What's that?
This is your second session. So we want to make sure that you guys are paying attention, being respectful. We have a couple speakers. Our first is going to be kind of an interactive thing between a couple of our teachers have a son that's a game programmer, and his buddy who he works with is going to interact, kind of show you their new game, and they just came out and kind of how they got to that point, how programming and coding work. And then our second speaker is going to be from the Wellfield Botanical Gardens, and he'll be our second speaker, okay? There will be a survey at the end, so as soon as the speakers get done, just don't get up and leave. We have something to fill you, have you guys fill out. So be patient, be respectful, okay? Good questions, and I'll turn it over to Mr. D.
Well, this is where I need Matt. Yep, they were good. There we are. All right. Here we go, round two, gentlemen. As Mrs. Wright already explained to you, I'm gonna let these guys introduce themselves. I'll tell you what's going on.
All right, screen share real quick.
Well, good. There we go.
All right, so we're 5 games. Can you see that on the screen?
We can see it.
Okay, so Kyle does programming and design, and I do art and animation. And we recently made a video game called More Fight. It's a 3D first-person view like science fiction exploration game. So there's randomly generated planets you can visit. There's a storyline alongside of that, so you can choose whether to go through the story, like the single-player experience, or kind of go off the beaten path and explore on your own. So Kyle's going to explain kind of how a certain system in the game works.
All right, so a big focus in the game is that we do a lot of randomly generated content that affects plants, animals, and the terrain itself. So I was just gonna quickly explain just kind of how we sort of came up with the process on how to randomly generate like a small level for a planet. And basically we start with one piece of terrain. So imagine this is like a bird's eye view of a piece of terrain that people can explore. So we start with the one piece, and then we have 3 nodes on this piece. And what those nodes do is say, hey, I want another piece of terrain to spawn on top of me right here. So the random generation system that we built goes, okay, let me check. So it finds 3 pieces of terrain to add around it. It positions them and rotates them to where they need to go so that it lines up and people can walk to those other pieces as well. But then it happens again and it kind of trickles down as it keeps going until a random pattern that becomes the level of the game. So now let me go back. Let's say we go to one of the pieces of terrain. We go down in the planet, and this is just a 2D representation, but imagine it in 3D, I guess. We have more nodes that say, hey, I want something to spawn here. So the system goes, oh, there's a node that wants to spawn something there, and it says, I want to be a tree. So it's like, okay, here's a tree. Then the second node goes, oh, I'm a tree as well. But then this tree trickles down again and says, but I want foliage on mine. So it adds some foliage to it. So it becomes a unique tree. And then the next node is, I'm not either of those things, I'm a rock. So it adds a rock. And then the last node goes, I'm none of those things, I'm a creature. I'm an enemy that you need to fight. So this is an example of some of the code that I've written so that the terrain generation understands where nodes are and spawns terrain to that node so that it becomes seamless. And it does it many, many times over to come up with the terrain to make sure that it works. And then on Brent's end, he does the art and stuff like that to help make the game end up looking like this. That's it. Whoops.
Sorry, we're trying to get back to the.
I should just use this, huh? There we go.
Yourselves.
There we go.
So yeah, so we're just a two-person team. Technically, we're self-employed. We don't work for a company. We do kind of contract out people, or we get contracted out. So we work with like people from all around the world. Josh, for example, oversees the project and funds certain aspects of it, and he's in New York. There's a studio that ported the game to different consoles, and they're from Australia, and then an artist from Spain. So we work remotely with each other over the internet in that way. So when it comes to like how much wages you can expect, if you're self-employed, they can kind of vary depending on the projects you take. If you have a salary job, that's obviously more stable and you can expect like benefits. But there's some satisfaction when it comes to working for yourself. You're very close to your work, and you can kind of get a lot of satisfaction from a successful project. Math and art is obviously a very important basis to have for a thing like this. We didn't go to school specifically for programming or making video game art or animation, but the skills that we learned, Kyle went into video production for school and in turn learned how to code through that. So he could apply that to learning how to code for video games. And I went to school for graphic design. So I had some skills that I could kind of carry over. So even though we didn't pursue that specifically, having a specific skill in mind and a work ethic can really help like to pursue a lot of different things. So yeah, I think if you want to ask any questions.
Caleb. Speak up so they can hear you.
I used to go to Concord.
Question was, did you used to go to Concord? I didn't cover that.
Did I go to Concord?
Yes.
Yeah, I did.
I did not.
See, I told you anything's possible if you work hard enough. Yeah. Could you get it? Speak up because you're a distance away because the mic's right here.
How long did the game take to make?
So we started development in February of 2015, 16, and it came out in September. So it was just over a year. And originally, we were planning on only releasing it on mobile. So that would have taken about half the time, but we decided to scale it up and release it on consoles and PC as well. So that basically doubled the amount of time that it would take. So it's important to kind of like realize how long games can take, right? Because it seems like it could be an easy process, but even one little change could affect the game development time in a great way.
Yes.
What's the hardest part of making video games?
The hardest part of making video games?
I would say really building and understanding the idea, the concept of your project, the mechanics that need to go into it, why those mechanics work and others don't, making sure that you get all of those in line before you go off and just start making whatever you want is really important. Granted, things can change as you go because you find things that don't work, but in the end, you need to be as prepared as possible and really understand why you're making this feature.
Yeah, organization is very important to the video game process. We weren't incredibly organized with Morphight. We became organized, but even something like putting things into correct folders to be able to reference is an important thing. And we also had, there's a website called Trello where you can kind of write down tasks and like checkbox them as complete. That helped a lot. So having like a good kind of organization underneath everything helps the development a lot.
Yeah.
What made you want to make a game like that?
What made us want to make a game like that?
Yeah.
So the game wasn't our idea originally. We worked with this guy, Josh, who has a publishing studio called Crescent Moon Games. And he developed a relationship with Kyle because Kyle made these kind of kits that people could buy to learn how to make a certain kind of game. So Josh bought one of those, and then Kyle became his kind of go-to developer. So whenever Josh has an idea for a game, he usually contacts Kyle to see if he wants to get involved. So that's kind of how we got into developing Morphight.
I would say we were interested in the idea though, and a lot of things that we created did influence how the game ended up taking shape.
Yep.
How many games have you guys made?
How many other games have we made?
Yeah.
We've made, I mean, we have a lot of unfinished games, obviously, because we're trying to figure out like what to do next. We've made several iOS games. We have a game called The Deer God that's on Xbox and PlayStation and PC, and I think iOS as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a game that we have called Hammer Bomb that's available on iOS and Android. So we've made maybe like five, 6 games, 3 of them being probably more substantial. And we've been doing it for about 5 years, so.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to do before you made your game?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Say it a little louder, Jenna.
Was there anything else you wanted to do instead of making your game?
Is there anything else you wanted to do besides making games? Is that the
Yes.
question?
Yep.
Yeah, so I went to school at Bethel College for graphic design. So I guess I kind of expected to have a job where I would be making either like website designs or things like that, or whatever graphics. I wasn't expecting to do animation and art in a video game. And on Kyle's end, he did video production. So we weren't really expecting this, kind of pursued it as a side thing that became like our focus.
Yeah, for now it's our focus. I guess I don't know what the future holds.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
How much do you get paid?
How much do we make?
Yeah.
It's not a lot. There'd probably be more people talking on the screen right now if we were making a lot. The wage varies. It depends on how quickly and how well you can develop a video game. So there's a lot of factors going into it. If you have a salary job, you have like a much higher pay, you can get benefits. So it's important to understand that being self-employed is very risky. You kind of have to work hard to keep at it. But it is nice having the freedom to do what you want and do the projects that you want.
Yep.
What's the game about?
What's the game called?
What's it about?
It's basically a first-person exploration RPG type game. So it's like a first-person shooter, but with a lot more emphasis on the story and exploration rather than just shooting a bunch of stuff, which you can do if you want. But you can go around and scan plants and stuff like that on randomly generated planets and use that to upgrade your stuff and then help you get through the story more easily. And yeah, I'd say, I don't know, there's a lot to do in the game, I would say. Maybe not in your opinion, but we spent a lot of time on as many things you can do in the game as possible. So.
And there's it's about like 10 to 12 hours of story, and the game is fully voice acted, so it follows the story of a woman who is figuring out like mysteries of this universe and her like family life as well. So it kind of follows her journey through that.
How many planets did you say there were to explore?
I don't know the exact number, but based on how the galaxy type thing sort of sets up, there's probably around 200 to 300 million planets.
Mm-hmm.
So it won't get old fast, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What consoles is this game available for?
What console is it on?
Yeah. What console?
It's on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Steam for PC, and iOS. And it's currently being reviewed for Nintendo Switch. So.
Right, way down there. Can't hear you, bud. Be louder so they can hear you.
Sorry, we can.
Still can't hear you. Come down here by the mic so they can hear you, bud, because I can't repeat that question. I couldn't catch it myself. Just sit in front of they can see you, man. There you go. Hey, we're having fun. It's all right.
Okay. Okay, that camera's kind of slow, ain't it? Considering what you said about the scanning stuff and all that,
yeah.
Wouldn't you say it's more or less No Man's Sky?
We didn't mean it. We started development before that game was released, so we didn't mean it to be like that at all. But it did have a little bit of similarities, other than the scanning isn't so much for just completionist or anything like that. It's more for building. You use them for upgrades, so that you get in the game.
Yeah, it definitely had No Man's Sky, but yeah, it's a much smaller team and kind of a different focus.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you like what you do?
Yeah, I think we love what we do. I mean, it's hard, but it's great kind of being in charge of your own projects, pursue, having the freedom kind of to do what you want. there's a lot of risk, but it's good.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever considered voicing your own characters?
What was that?
She said, would you guys ever consider voicing your own characters?
I wouldn't do it, no, but
We could. So one time we tried to make like a procedurally generated voice system. So we recorded like vowels and consonants, and then Kyle tried to piece them together so they would randomly play. It was more entertaining than useful. It was just like an excuse to like do something dumb and funny.
we didn't want them to sound like perfect English or anything like that, but it sounded pretty weird.
Jalen.
They're gonna be like a game to make you throw your controller to get mad.
Jalen, couldn't hear you. Couldn't understand it.
Is it gonna be like a game to make you throw your controller to get mad?
Is it the type of game that would make you throw your controller if you got frustrated?
And, I don't think so, no. It's not like, have you guys seen the game Cuphead that just came out? It's not like that.
It's a relaxed kind of experience. I mean, there's some puzzles that are challenging, but
It's not a rage game.
yeah, it's not super fast paced.
So Jalen, you don't need to buy an extra controller. You should be okay. Yes, sir.
Is it a multiplayer game?
Wait, hold on. Got one in front, then I'll get to you.
Is it also multiplayer?
Is it also multiplayer?
No, we had already been working on the game for a year and a half. We could not spend the extra 6 to 8 months on just multiplayer to make it economically viable.
When you're making a game, if you add multiplayer near like the end of the development, that can increase the amount of time spent on it a lot. So if you aren't focusing on that in the beginning, it can really like extend your dev time by like way too much. So if we added it, for example, it probably would have been delayed by another year at least, trying to implement that into the game.
And in our situation, we don't have limitless funds to just keep going forever because, yeah.
Makes sense. There was another question?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How much does the game cost?
How much does the game cost?
On PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and when Nintendo Switch comes out, it is $15, and it will be $15 for Switch. iOS, and Steam as well. Sorry, Steam on PC is also $15, but then iOS is $8.
Mr. DeMee? Yes.
Is it like for the consoles? Do you have to get it on PS4 like the internet, or is it like in GameStop?
We do not have like cases in stores.
Yep.
That one was really laggy, so you broke up a lot on that last comment.
Oh. It's digital only. There's no physical copies of the game.
So that one.
Are you in the process of making a new game?
You have a new game on tap.
So that's what we're figuring out, and I'm sure today we'll figure that out. So we're throwing ideas around, trying to what you call prototype, which is quickly come up with an idea and see if something sticks and then pursue that. So we're still throwing mechanics and ideas around to figure out what to pursue next. But there's also, we could pursue something on our own, or we could also try to do something again with Josh, who we made More Fight with. So we're kind of figuring out what's the best avenue to pursue.
Cool. Jenna?
You make a game, you sell it.
Her question was, when you make a game, do you sell it?
We do not get paid before the release, so yeah, the profits from game sales pay us. Yes.
So download the game and go crazy on social media to help out fellow Concord grad. Say that again, Kyle. When did you guys become a team?
2011, 12.
Yep. I did an internship with Kyle for college credit in 2012, and Kyle said that if I was going to do that, then I would have to move up to Minnesota to work with him. So it's been like that ever since.
My bad.
Yes, kiddo.
Will the game be early access?
Will the game be? The game's out.
Game's out. It is not early access.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
How would you react to the way that you play your game?
How long does it take to beat it?
How would you react if a famous YouTuber played your game?
Oh, I really did not hear that correctly. Anyway, I think we'd be pretty excited because even if they gave it a bad review, that still puts the game in front of a lot of other eyes. So hopefully someday somebody will play it.
There was one guy who did it, Jim Sterling. So that was probably the biggest one, but we haven't had any like million views channels review it. But that definitely helps sales.
Jalen.
Are there any curse words in it?
Are there any curse words in it?
What's T, but there isn't. In fact, since everything's randomly generated, I made a function called bad boy words or check bad boy words. So it makes sure it scrubs anything that's bad in the game by accident just by random generation. So no.
It's family friendly. Jenna. When did you make your first game?
I made a very, very small game that was very terrible, but it was the first thing I was able to release on something, any device, I think that was 2011. Mm-hmm. And it was just this little game where you're a little spaceship and you just hop around on rectangles that fly by you so you don't fall. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. And Kyle made that in Unity, and we've been using Unity since then. And it's free for personal use. It's a game engine. So if you're interested at all in making games, you can download that for free. And there's a lot of resources online that you can use to learn how to use it.
Mm-hmm. And if you like doing art more so, then you could look into at least 3D art specifically. There's a free program called Blender that you can find online and just download and tinker with.
So I want to repeat that for you guys. They're telling you there are things, if you're interested, you can get involved with. Unity, from the gaming side of things, it's a free, you can find it on the internet. And Blender, because I've said it for both. It's something I want to make sure you guys catch. Yeah.
How long does it take to learn animation?
How long does it take to learn animation?
Animation? You take that one.
So I kind of did I remember in high school I learned how to do Flash animation. So that was helpful because there's some kind of basics in terms of like keyframe and making different frames of animation. But the system is kind of different. There's a lot of math involved in like rotating limbs and things like that. Like if I need to make a running animation, there will be like a knee joint and like an elbow joint and like a neck joint. So I have to input numbers to make those limbs rotate in a way that looks believable, like as a realistic run. So there's a lot of like math and art kind of like colliding in that area of art.
You can probably tinker with it pretty quickly, but it does take a long time to get good at it.
Okay, gentlemen, we're getting down to the end of your segment. So is there any words of wisdom you'd like to leave with these guys before we go?
I mean, if you're interested at all in pursuing video games, there's a lot of different ways you could do it. You could focus on music, programming, art. It's just mostly important to have a good kind of organization and workflow and kind of passion for that. And if we had been practicing the things that we now do back like then, like if we were in junior high doing that stuff, we'd be in a much better spot. So the earlier the better with like stuff you want to learn. And you can also apply it to different careers as well. So yeah.
A lot of careers in programming and art.
Okay. Anything else, folks? Oh, one last question.
What was the game called again?
Name of the game one last time. Get a plug in there before you go.
It's called Morphite, Morphite. I can try to pull it up really quick. Oh, no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we can't say thank you enough for taking time out of your day and sharing it with us. Ladies and gentlemen.
How many of you have thought about being a gamer? Or you guys are probably all
They are gamers.
We do have another speaker. All right, listen up, guys. Right here. We do have Mr. Garten from Welltown, and he's going to talk about what he does there and kind of what the things they offer, kind of opportunities and careers that might be related to your viewers. So give your attention to him, be respectful. At the end, remember we're filling out a survey, so give him your attention until the end, and then we'll fill out that survey, okay?
And I'll leave some time to, you guys can ask some questions. So I'm glad to be here today and talk to you a little bit about Oakfield Botanic Gardens and what I do as a job, and maybe some things that you might be interested in doing at a botanic garden somewhere. You have been to Wellfield Botanic Gardens before. A few of you. Why did you go? Why are you there? A family vacation. What, something else? Anyone go for a school field trip? Or a special event? A concert? What'd you go for? Your mom works there. Well, that's good. Who's your mom? Very good. All right, nice to see you. I didn't recognize you. Bree actually works in the horticulture department, so she's actually out in the garden. So, how many of you have been to another botanic garden somewhere? Anybody? What is a botanic garden? Do you have any ideas? So tell me some words that come to your mind when you think of botanic garden. What is a botanic garden? Raise your hand. Flowers. What else is at a botanic garden? What was it? Statues. Actually, yes. What else? Food. Like plants that are food. Awesome. So those are really good things that come from botanic gardens. And a really, really important way to think about a botanic garden, brothers and sisters, that you might want to explain this to, I tell them, think of it like a living museum. What do you think of at a museum? Animals could be at a museum, right? Art? How about art? What about the living part? Why are we a living museum? Yes, sir. Yeah. Right. And we have another thing in our garden, in addition to a lot of animals that occur there, we have plants. So plants are like our collection. And one of the things that I always like to think about in a botanic garden when we're talking about jobs is, anybody know what this is? No. What do you got? A part of a scooter. It looks like a part of a scooter. It is not part of a scooter. What do you think you might do with this? Yes. What's that? A sprinkler pipe? No, it's not quite a sprinkler pipe. So it has a sharp edge down here. It has a tube with a hole in it. What do you do with it? In the ground, and you push it down and twist it, and you come out with a long plug of soil that you can then do tests with, or you can observe all the different layers of soil, stuff that you can't see when you're just looking at the ground. And so that's why, kind of an example of what I want my show about Wellfield Botanic Garden. So what kind of jobs are there? So I'm the director at the garden. I oversee all the staff, all the programs. I manage our budget. Botanic Garden, it's a pretty cool thing. I've been working for Botanic Gardens for about 20 years, and I didn't start out as a boss. I started out working in the garden. I'm a biologist. I actually started working as a biologist. I went to school when I was a little kid. I always knew I wanted to be a biologist. What's a biologist do? Study life, yeah, exactly. So I wanted to study animals. And so I got into, after I graduated from high school, I went to a college and I studied biology and I learned about a lot of plants, a lot of animals. And when I got out working, I worked for the United States Forest Service for a little while. I counted squirrels and owls. I was outdoors a lot. But what it lacked for me was interaction with people. I really like people. And I like sharing what I love, and I like connecting people to their environment. Because environment is important. Anybody think the planet is important? This is good. What about plants? How many of you are wearing plants right now? Hands should go up. Everyone's hands should go up. How many of you hate plants at some point today? Everyone's hands should go up. How many of you breathe oxygen today? Plants are important. If we don't have plants, we don't have food, and we're not going to have clothing. Unless we go back to eating or wearing all animal skins, but what do animals need to live? So they eat plants too. So what we talk about at Wellfield Botanic Garden is the importance of water to life on Earth, because water is really important. If we don't have water, we don't have plants, we don't have life. So water is very, very important to us. We talk about education. We actually have an education department that goes and teaches kids and adults alike, all lifelong learners, about the environment and how important it is to us. Someone said we have sculptures. We do have sculptures. We have different art forms around our garden. And so we want to inspire creativity. The outdoors is something that inspires creativity. A lot of the art that, any artists in here? You guys get inspired by nature? I do. Maybe a little bit. And we also believe in growing and building community. So it's very important for us to be a part of the community. We are a not-for-profit organization. I don't know, does anyone have parents who work at a not-for-profit, or anyone volunteer at a not-for-profit? So a volunteer or staff at a not-for-profit is a really important thing in the community. It focuses on service, but we have to run like a business. So we have all kinds of staff at the garden. We have people who work out in the garden. We have people who work in the business office who make sure that people get paid. And we have educators, and we have people who sell tickets, and we have a whole lot of volunteers too. So we don't have a lot of staff. We only have about 14 people, but we have about 200 volunteers that give time throughout the year. How much money do I make? How much money can you make working at a botanic garden? You gonna be super rich? Probably not. Probably not. So at a botanic garden, you can make between $80,000 a year. It's not too bad for this area right here. I mentioned it. I asked if anyone else had been to another botanic garden. Do you know there are over 300 botanic gardens in the United States? I've actually worked at 3, and I've been to probably 100. So I've worked in Arizona and in California at botanic gardens, and now I work at a botanic garden here in Elkhart. A lot of the things that people do at botanic gardens are transferable. If you have to do something, you can actually go to other places and do that same job or work your way up in an organization like I have done. One of the things that, people who take care of plants, for instance, places that you might take care of plants. What other, are there museums or zoos? What about zoos? You need people to take care of animals, but do zoos have plants too? They all do. So all zoos have someone who takes care of the plants. So do cities like Elkhart and Goshen. They have people who water the grass and who take care of the flowers and make the streets look pretty for the people who live there. That's all a very, very important part of horticulture. And so anyone in here interested or have you heard of the word horticulture before? Oh, yeah. You've worked in our garden before. That's awesome. So horticulture is taking care of and growing plants. Really important thing to do. And not all the people who work in a botanic garden have to know how to take care of plants, but a lot of us have plants as a passion and something we like to do. So one thing I would say to you all, and my recommendation is, no matter what you do, first of all, you want to enjoy what you do. Are you always going to enjoy your job? Always? Every day? All the time throughout the day? Not. But most of the time. And everything I do, almost every day, is different because I have so many different things as a part of my job. My job never gets old, so it's never boring. That's one thing I would say. I tell you to think about the parts of a job that make a successful business. And a lot of things now, there's something called the triple bottom line, or you can think of it as the 3 P's. So think about these 3 P's as profits. So what are profits? Making money, right? You got to make money to pay the bills. And even to do our mission, we have to be able to keep the electricity and the water, and we have to pay for our internet, and we have to make sure we pay our staff, and we give money out to the community, and we grow, and we have to buy more plants. So that's profit. We have to make money. People are pretty important too. So that's something you have to balance. You have to balance profits, and you have to balance people. And the third part of it is the plan. So we want to be environmentally sustainable. Everything we do, we want to have sustainability. So we have to balance the planet and the people and the profits. Every business, anything that you think about doing, you have to balance the planet with the profits, with the people. And somewhere in the middle, where those 3 sections come together, that's where you're going to be sustainable. Well-field botanic gardens try to do on a daily basis. We want to take care of our staff and our volunteers and our guests. We want to be an important part of our community and a contributor. We want to be financially sustainable. We want to make sure we make enough money to keep our business going and further our mission. And we want to take care of the planet because without it, we're not going too far. Some other, what questions do you all have? Any questions about
What inspired you to work with plants?
So what inspired me to work with plants? That's a great question. As a kid, I always wanted to be outside. Anybody like playing outside? No. So I love playing outside. I grew up in a really small part of the country, up in Oregon, and I played outside all the time. I knew I wanted to, and that's what I ended up doing. So I followed through. So stick with it. If you have something now that you love, stick with it. You can probably find something that you can do in that area. Yes. We do rent out the garden. So the question was, do we rent out the gardens for events? We rent them out for weddings. We rent them out for different parties and things like that. And we also use them for things like concerts, special events, all kinds of stuff involving other trades. Yes. Oh, that's a good question. So how many different plants do we have? How many different types? We have about 800 different species of plants represented in our garden. You consider how many plants there are on Earth. There's about 400,000 different plants, and we have about 800 of those represented in our garden. That's a really good question. What other questions? Yes, sir.
How much do you rent out the gardens for an hour?
Oh, how much do we rent out the gardens for an hour? It kind of depends, usually on the size of the event, but maybe anywhere from a few $100s up to a few $1,000s. That's a really good question. So what do you think about this industry, the industry of botanic gardens? Do you think it's something? Probably not. Why is it going to stay around? Because it involves the earth and the environment. Do you think the environment is something that businesses are going to spend more time paying attention to, more money, more focus on the environment, or less as we go on? More. More, for sure. Why? Why more? And not less? It's important. Why are we going to spend more focus on the environment? It's like you guys. You guys are going to have kids at some point, and we want to make sure that your kids have a planet to live on, and they want to make sure that they have clean water. I have a 7th grader. He doesn't go to this school, he goes to another school, but I want to make sure that he has fresh water to drink. Do you think that the water do you think water is threatened? Are there things that threaten our water? Yeah. It's the same water that's been around for millions and millions of years. It's the same water, and it's treated when it goes down through the earth, and it gets filtered out. All those impurities and those toxins that are in there. That's why botanic gardens are important, but that's also why it's important that you have plants at your house that can actually help you do that and stabilize the soil and does all the stuff the soil is supposed to do. So there will be more emphasis on things that protect the earth, no matter what business you're in. What do we make here in Elkhart County? What's one of the big industries here in Elkhart County? Yes, RVs. So anybody have an RV at home, or you've been in an RV? You know what an RV is? Okay. So those businesses that make RVs that are more environmentally responsible than they used to. Right next to our garden, there used to be a company called Selmer, on Selmer, and they used to dump all kinds of nasty things out on the ground. And that was just how they did it back then because they didn't know any better. And so it polluted the groundwater. And so now we have to do things to fix the groundwater. Do you think those companies are just dumping things out on the ground now? We hope not, right? So that's a good thing. So we're always going to do things that make less problems for our environment. That's what we need to try to do. What other questions? Could someone, anyone interested in working at a botanic garden or something? Maybe. So you can also work at zoos, you can work for cities, you can work for museums, you can work for parks, you can work for national parks. These are all things that are related to taking care of plants and animals and the environment. Any other questions? Any?
Did you go over like the activities and the events you have?
Oh, yeah.
How we can find them?
Yeah, so on our website, which is this guy right here, you can just Google Wellfield Gardens, or you can look at it on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I think those are what we have right now for social media. What should we be doing more stuff on social media? You guys have phones? Yeah. You guys use the internet? Where should we be putting our events? Where should we be advertising? What is it? Netflix? Snapchat. Actually, I think someone's making a Snapchat account for us. So we have events all through the year. In fact, in December, we actually have a new one this year that's going to be holiday lights. So we have a company that's coming in and putting up these beautiful light displays. And you'll be able to walk through, listen to live music, you can drink some hot cocoa, have a nice thing to do with family. We have concerts in the summer. Next spring and summer, we're opening up a children's garden. So that should be pretty awesome, and that's going to be a great thing for a lot of the families that are in Elkhart and Elkhart County. Saturday, we have Monsters in the Garden. So it's a Halloween kind of fall event. We have a company coming in, and they're bringing in live animals, so there's a wild animal show. And we're actually promised a very secret new animal that they have. And I can't even tell you what that is, but we're going to be bringing something really cool. We have a food truck, we have storytelling, and of course trick-or-treating all around the garden too. Check it out online. It's Saturday night. Great brothers and sisters, dress in costumes, all ages, doesn't really matter. What other questions? You guys know what you want to do when you grow up? Who knows what they want to do when they grow up? What are you going to do? You're doing what? A marine biologist. That's a really important thing too. That's like water and that's awesome. What else? What else does someone want to be? Anybody else know? Who else? What do you want to be?
I want to be.
You want to be a child? Cosmetology, okay, that's important too. Get people looking and feeling good about themselves. What else? What do you want to do? You want to work for the FBI? What do you want to investigate? Behavioral analysis. That's cool. You have to go to school for that? I think so. I think you have to go to school for all of those things. So you're going to be doing continuing training throughout. One of the things that I get to do a lot of throughout the year, I get to travel around and go to a lot of conferences. I get to do a lot of continuing education. So no matter what you do, I hope you will continue to learn. I noticed in the guys who were up there before, someone asked, how long did it take you to learn animation? And I think the answer that he really meant to say was, you never stop learning those. So every day I learn something new about our world, whether I actually go out and read a book or whether I make an observation. You can always be learning new things. And I know when you're in school, it's sometimes hard to think about going out and doing more learning, but you guys are learning constantly. You guys are always absorbing what's around you. And you should never stop doing that as an adult too. So as you grow up, don't ever stop learning. You'll continue to do great things. So, cool.
All right, we're close to time. Is there any last questions?
My name's Eric. R-T-G-R-T-O-N. So it's kind of like garden, it's German. And I was hired in my first garden job by a woman named Ruth Greenhouse. Story. True story.
Okay, let's read it out. Let's give him a hand. You don't have a pencil bar one? Just lay it on the back table as you exit. 1, 2, 3 makes the announcement, okay? So as soon as you're done, you're not automatically leaving. You're going to hang tight, finish your survey, and then once you're dismissed, you leave them in the back desk there, okay? All
We should be winding down our session. Teachers, survey for that. And we would like you to 4-hour class by 11 o'clock. Thank you very much. Speakers, you can please report back to the teacher lounge. You can check out the Thank you very much.
Okay, so did everybody get that? On the fourth hour, and you're gonna keep your paper bag back Alright, well, thank you, ma'am. From this walk away, I think. Yeah. Oh, you're so anxious and what? Swirly then.
Denise suggested that maybe we should have put the other group first, but I don't think it would matter.
First.
Yeah, had the,
Well,
him go first. And
well, that's what we did the first time, but the guys went ahead and disconnected and reconnected stuff, so we already had it connected.
I see, yeah.
Yeah.
But did it make a difference?
I think by the time you accept your 2 hours of people talking, you're gonna be scrolling no matter what.
That's usually it's good.
The first group was better because it was the first session, I think. Yeah, I just think they got thrown. Daddy on it. Over. His name, I think, was Daddy on it.
Daddy?
Okay, all right. See ya. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
Anybody has any of this?
I just, I'm on, all my crap's coming up in here. Here, turn those off while you're talking.
And then insert share. I'm really happy that this went well.